The Gathering Storm. The Zalkorian Empire had ruled over 300 systems for 10,000 years. Their crystalline ships gleamed across the void, spreading their influence through technological superiority and calculated intimidation. No species dared challenge them. Their military doctrine was simple: demonstrate overwhelming force once, and submission would follow. It had always worked. From the command deck of the Infinite Majesty, High Commander Varix studied the blue planet floating in the view screen. Earth, they called it. A primitive world with barely functioning space travel, populated by creatures that still relied on chemical rockets and fought amongst themselves. Another backwater civilization. Varix mused, his 4 arms folded across his chest. His species, the Zalkorians, stood 12 feet tall, with translucent skin that revealed their internal bioluminescence. Send the standard message. The first contact message was transmitted across all human channels. It was brief, cold, and carried the weight of absolute authority. People of Earth, you will integrate into the Zalkorian Empire. Resistance is illogical. Compliance ensures survival. You have 7 of your solar cycles to respond. The United Earth government convened an emergency session. Politicians argued, military advisors warned, and scientists analyzed. The consensus was grim. Humanity had nothing that could challenge the Zalkorian fleet. Conventional weapons were useless against their energy shields. But beneath the ice of Antarctica, something extraordinary was happening. 6 months earlier, a team of researchers had discovered a massive structure buried under 2 miles of ice. It was a ship, ancient beyond measure, yet its systems still responded to human touch. The discovery had been classified beyond top secret. Dr. James Morrison stood before the ancient control panel, his fingers trembling as alien symbols flowed across holographic displays. "It's teaching us," he whispered to his team. The ship is adapting its interface to human comprehension. The vessel was unlike anything they'd imagined. It was organic metal, self-healing, with weapons systems that defied physics. More importantly, it seemed to have been waiting for humanity. The research team theorized that the ship had been left by an extinct civilization that had faced a similar threat. Admiral Sarah Chen received her orders in a sealed envelope. At 45, she was one of Earth's most decorated naval commanders, known for her tactical brilliance and unwavering determination. Reading the briefing, she felt the weight of humanity's survival settle on her shoulders. "You're asking me to command an alien ship we barely understand against an empire that's conquered hundreds of worlds?" she asked General Reynolds. "We're asking you to give humanity a fighting chance," he replied. The project was named Operation Defiance. Engineers, scientists, and military personnel worked around the clock to understand and activate the ancient vessel. They christened it the Dreadnought. As systems came online, it became clear this was no ordinary warship. It was a predator, designed by a species that had learned the hard way that survival meant being the most dangerous thing in the room. Chen spent weeks learning the ship's systems. The neural interface was painful at first, but gradually, she began to feel the Dreadnought as an extension of herself. Its weapons were beyond anything humanity had conceived. Graviton cannons that could crush ships like tin cans, plasma arrays that burned hotter than stars, and something called a reality anchor that no one fully understood. As the Zalkorian deadline approached, tension mounted. The aliens had positioned their fleet just beyond Mars, a show of force meant to intimidate. Their flagship, the Eternal Dominion, was a behemoth stretching 15 kilometers, bristling with weapons that had never known defeat. High Commander Varix reviewed Earth's response with amusement. They had agreed to negotiate but requested a meeting in neutral space. "They seek to delay the inevitable," he said to his bridge crew. "Very well. Let them witness our might firsthand." The chosen location was the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The Zalkorian delegation arrived in a fleet of 20 ships, led by the Eternal Dominion. They expected to see Earth's primitive vessels, perhaps some hastily assembled space fighters. They did not expect the Dreadnought. The ancient ship emerged from the shadow of Ceres, its dark hull absorbing light like a black hole. It was smaller than the Zalkorian flagship, but radiated an aura of menace that made veteran warriors uneasy. Its design was unlike anything in known space, angular and predatory, with weapons ports that seemed to shift and change as they watched. Admiral Chen stood on the Dreadnought's bridge, her crew of 500 working in perfect synchronization. Through the neural link, she felt the ship's eagerness, its hunger for battle. It had been dormant too long. Zalkorian Fleet, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth Vessel Dreadnought. We come to negotiate from a position of strength. Your empire will advance no further. The response was immediate and contemptuous. Unknown vessel, you face the might of the Zalkorian Empire. Power down your systems and prepare for boarding or be destroyed. Chen smiled grimly. All hands, battle stations. Let's show them why they should fear humans. The Zalkorians fired first, confident in their superiority. Energy beams capable of vaporizing asteroids lanced toward the Dreadnought. The human vessel's shields flared, not just deflecting the attacks but absorbing them. Growing stronger. Impossible, Varix muttered, watching his tactical display. Increase firepower. The battle had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. Against all odds. The Dreadnought moved like nothing the Zalkorians had ever encountered. Where their ships maneuvered with calculated precision, the human vessel danced through space with organic fluidity. Admiral Chen, linked directly to the ship's systems, felt every threat, every opportunity, as if they were extensions of her own senses. Target their escort vessels, she commanded. Show them we mean business. The Dreadnought's graviton cannon spoke. Unlike energy weapons that traveled at light speed, these weapons warped space itself. The first Zalkorian cruiser didn't explode. It imploded, crushed into a sphere no larger than a basketball before winking out of existence. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, High Commander Varix felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Uncertainty. Concentrate all firepower on that vessel. It cannot withstand our combined assault. 20 Zalkorian ships opened fire simultaneously. The space around the Dreadnought became a maelstrom of energy, enough firepower to crack a small moon. Through it all, the human ship's shields held, growing brighter with each impact. Admiral, Lieutenant Commander Martinez reported, the ship is using their own energy against them. The more they fire, the stronger our shields become. Chen nodded, her mind racing through tactical possibilities. The Dreadnought's creators had built it to fight enemies exactly like the Zalkorians, technologically advanced but complacent in their superiority. Time to take the offensive, target their formation's weak points. The Dreadnought surged forward, its plasma arrays carving through space. Unlike the precise beams of Zalkorian weapons, these were weapons of chaos, streams of superheated matter that twisted and turned, seeking weakness. 2 more escort ships fell, their crystalline hulls shattering like glass. They're learning, Tactical Officer Wong observed. The Zalkorians are adapting their formation. It was true. The alien fleet was reorganizing, creating overlapping fields of fire that would be difficult to penetrate. But Chen had spent years studying naval warfare, and she recognized the pattern. They're forming a classic phalanx, strong from the front, vulnerable from above and below. The Dreadnought suddenly changed vector, accelerating straight up relative to the solar plane. The Zalkorian ships struggled to track the movement. Their tactical doctrine had evolved in 2-dimensional thinking, while humans had always dreamed in 3 dimensions. From above, the Dreadnought unleashed its reality anchors. These weapons didn't destroy in any conventional sense. Instead, they locked portions of spacetime, preventing the target from existing in the same phase as normal matter. 3 Zalkorian destroyers simply ceased to be, leaving behind ghostly afterimages that slowly faded. High Commander Varix watched his fleet being systematically dismantled by a single ship, pride warred with pragmatism in his mind. The Zalkorians hadn't faced a real challenge in millennia, and their tactics showed it. This human vessel fought with a creativity and adaptability that defied their understanding. "Bring the eternal dominion to bear," he ordered. "We will end this personally." The massive flagship began to move, its bulk casting shadows across the battlefield. Unlike the escort vessels, the Eternal Dominion mounted weapons that had ended civilizations. Planet crackers, star killers, technologies so destructive they were rarely deployed. On the Dreadnought's bridge, alarms blared. "Admiral, the flagship is powering up something massive," Wong reported. "Energy readings are off the scale." Chen felt the Dreadnought's own response through the neural link. The ship recognized the threat and was preparing countermeasures she didn't fully understand. Ancient systems, dormant for eons, began to wake. "All hands, brace for impact," she ordered. "Trust the ship." The Eternal Dominion fired its primary weapon, a quantum destabilizer that could unravel matter at the subatomic level. The beam struck the Dreadnought dead center, and for a moment, it seemed the human vessel would be erased from existence. Instead, something extraordinary happened. The Dreadnought's hull began to glow, not with the destruction of the quantum beam, but with an inner light. The ship was transforming, reconfiguring itself in response to the attack. Armor plates shifted, revealing crystalline structures underneath that sang with power. Through the neural link, Chen suddenly understood. The Dreadnought wasn't just a warship, it was a warrior that evolved through combat. Every attack it survived made it stronger, more adapted to its enemy. "Return fire," she commanded, though she knew the ship had already decided to do so. From the transformed sections of the Dreadnought's hull, beams of impossible color lanced out. They struck the Eternal Dominion's shields and passed through them as if they weren't there. The flagship's hull began to bubble and warp where the beams touched. "Impossible," Varric shouted. "Our shields are impenetrable." But they weren't. Not to weapons designed by a species that had faced and overcome the Zalkorian's ancestors. The Dreadnought pressed its advantage, closing to point-blank range. The battle became a brutal slugfest. The Eternal Dominion unleashed every weapon in its arsenal, while the Dreadnought responded with technologies that bent the laws of physics. Space itself warped around the two titans, creating gravitational eddies that pulled in debris and destroyed any smaller ships that came too close. "Admiral, our power levels are dropping," Martins warned. "The ship is drawing enormous amounts of energy." Chen could feel it through the link. The Dreadnought was preparing for something unprecedented. Deep in its core, ancient machinery was spinning up, gathering power for a single, decisive strike. "Clear all friendly forces from the area," she ordered. "Whatever's about to happen, we don't want our people caught in it." On the Eternal Dominion, Varric faced a choice he never thought he'd have to make. His flagship was taking damage, actual damage, from a single enemy vessel. The unblemished record of Zalkorian supremacy was crumbling before his eyes. "High Commander," his second-in-command said, "we should consider withdrawal. We can return with the full fleet." "No," Varric snarled. "We do not retreat from primitives." It was pride that sealed their fate. As the Dreadnought's power levels peaked, Admiral Chen felt the ship communicate a single concept: final. "All hands, prepare for maximum output. This is it." The space between the two ships began to distort, reality itself bending under the strain of the energies being unleashed. The Dreadnought had become a star, burning with power accumulated over millions of years. Then it fired. The tide turns. The weapon that the Dreadnought unleashed had no name in any human language. It wasn't a beam or a projectile, but rather a fundamental reordering of reality itself. The space occupied by the Eternal Dominion simply inverted, turning inside out at the quantum level. High Commander Varric had a fraction of a second to comprehend what was happening. His mighty flagship, the symbol of Zalkorian dominance for 10 millennia, was being unmade, not destroyed in any conventional sense, but erased from the fundamental fabric of space-time. The Eternal Dominion collapsed into itself, its 15-kilometer bulk compressed into a singularity before disappearing entirely. The shockwave that followed rippled through space, detected by every sensor array in the solar system. On the Dreadnought's bridge, Admiral Chen slumped in her command chair, the neural link temporarily overwhelming her with the ship's exultation. Through their connection, she felt its satisfaction, not just at victory, but at fulfilling its purpose after eons of waiting. Status report, she managed, her voice hoarse. The Zalkorian flagship is gone, Admiral, Wang reported, his voice filled with awe. The remaining enemy ships are in full retreat. It was true. The surviving Zalkorian vessels, witnessing the impossible destruction of their greatest warship, broke formation and fled. For the first time in their recorded history, a Zalkorian fleet ran from battle. Should we pursue? Martins asked. Chen shook her head. No. Let them run. Let them carry the message. And carry it they did. The news spread through Zalkorian space like wildfire. The Eternal Dominion, destroyed. Their invasion fleet routed. By a single ship crewed by primitives. In the depths of Zalkorian Prime, Emperor Zarvos received the report with disbelief. One ship. They defeated our flagship with one ship. Yes, Divine One. His advisor trembled. The humans possess technology we do not understand. Ancient technology. Prepare the Grand Fleet, Zarvos commanded. We will crush this upstart species with overwhelming force. But other voices began to speak. Voices that had been silent for millennia. From species that had long ago accepted Zalkorian rule. If humans could stand against the Empire, perhaps others could too. Back in Earth orbit, Admiral Chen addressed the United Earth Council. The Dreadnought has bought us time, but this is far from over. The Zalkorians will return with everything they have. What do you recommend, Admiral? The Secretary General asked. We need allies. The Dreadnought's databases contain coordinates for other ancient weapons caches. More ships like this one, hidden across the galaxy. We need to find them before the Zalkorians return. In the weeks that followed, humanity mobilized like never before. The Dreadnought's technology was studied and replicated where possible. Scientists worked around the clock to understand the principles behind its weapons and shields. More importantly, Earth began reaching out to other species. The footage of the battle, broadcast across all channels, served as both warning and invitation. The message was clear. The Zalkorians could be beaten. The first to respond were the Kazan, an insectoid race that had maintained a guerrilla resistance against Zalkorian rule for centuries. We have preserved fragments of the ancient knowledge. Their queen communicated. Together, we might unlock more of its secrets. Next came the Thri, aquatic beings who controlled vast resources but lacked military technology. We offer our industrial capacity in exchange for protection, their ambassador gurgled through the translator. Species after species made contact, drawn by the hope that humanity's victory represented. Each brought something to the table: resources, knowledge, personnel. The Dreadnought became the flagship of a growing coalition. 3 months after the battle, long-range sensors detected the approaching Zalkorian Grand Fleet. 500 ships, led by 3 super dreadnoughts, each twice the size of the destroyed Eternal Dominion. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Dreadnought, now accompanied by a fleet of 200 ships from a dozen species. They were still outnumbered, but no longer alone. The ancient databases speak of a network, Dr. Morrison explained, now serving as the ship's science officer. The Dreadnought was never meant to fight alone. It's part of a larger system. Chen nodded. Through her neural link, she could feel the ship's anticipation. Can we activate this network? We've located 3 other ancient ships. They're powering up now, responding to the Dreadnought's call. As the Zalkorian Grand Fleet entered the solar system, they were met not by a single ship, but by 4 dreadnoughts, each unique, each deadly. Behind them, the coalition fleet stood ready. Emperor Zarvos himself commanded the assault. All ships, maximum firepower. Show these primitives the true might of the Zalkorian Empire. The battle that followed would be remembered for generations. The Zalkorians fought with desperate fury, their technological superiority challenged for the first time. The coalition forces, led by the Dreadnoughts, fought with the determination of those who had everything to lose. The four ancient ships worked in perfect synchronization, their weapons complementing each other. Where one created gravitational anomalies, another exploited them. Where one phased targets out of reality, another prevented them from returning. The turning point came when the Dreadnoughts formed a tetrahedral formation and activated what the databases called the Reality Forge. Space itself buckled and twisted, creating a weapon that targeted not ships, but the very concept of Zalkorian supremacy. The Super Dreadnoughts, pinnacles of Zalkorian engineering, found their systems rebelling. Their AIs, touched by the Reality Forge, began to question their programming. Their weapons refused to fire. Their shields flickered and died. Emperor Zarvos watched in horror as his grand fleet fell apart, not through destruction, but through a fundamental rewriting of reality that made their victory impossible. "This cannot be," he whispered. "We are supreme. We are eternal." Admiral Chen's voice cut across all channels. "You were supreme because no one challenged you. You were eternal because no one fought back. That changes today." The Reality Forge reached its crescendo. Across the battlefield, Zalkorian ships began to power down. Not destroyed, but neutralized, their crews suddenly aware of the possibility of peace. In the aftermath, as surrender terms were negotiated, humanity found itself in an unexpected position. The coalition looked to them for leadership, not because of military might, but because of their willingness to stand against impossible odds. "We didn't win because of the Dreadnought," Chen told the assembled representatives. "We won because we refused to accept that we couldn't win. That's what makes us human." The Zalkorian Empire didn't fall in a day, but its aura of invincibility was broken. Species across the galaxy began to assert their independence, inspired by humanity's example. The four Dreadnoughts became guardians of this new order, their ancient technology ensuring that no single power could dominate the galaxy again. They chose their crews carefully, always including humans who carried that spark of defiance. Admiral Sarah Chen retired years later, but the neural link never fully severed. Sometimes, in quiet moments, she could still feel the Dreadnought out there, watching, waiting, ready to defend those who dared to stand up to tyranny. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate humanity, for when pushed to the brink, humans don't just fight back. They change the rules of the game entirely. And somewhere in the depths of space, hidden in places yet undiscovered, more ancient ships waited. For the builders of the Dreadnoughts had known a truth that humanity was only beginning to understand. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance, and the universe always needs those willing to pay it. The age of empires was ending. The age of cooperation had begun. And at its heart stood humanity, no longer the newest species on the galactic stage, but perhaps its most important. They never feared humans, until Earth's Dreadnought crushed their flagship. Now they understood that true strength came not from technology or numbers, but from the unconquerable spirit that refused to accept defeat. The stars belonged to everyone now, and humanity would make sure it stayed that way.